And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Got the like, share, subscribe button down there for everybody to punch, and then of course there's a PayPal link for anybody that wants to share some love, and the StreamYard link is down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. So feel free. And we're going to get into it with a short little video on Mark Twain and a copyright issue. We're going to go over some material here, hopefully express to you guys what copyright notice is, what it's all about. And it's about giving them legal notice in a certain fashion. I hope I can convey that to you tonight. And that's a peaceful passion that, hey, I may or may not be right. You'll have to check with other sources, da-da-da-da. People are out here making all kinds of claims of truth and stuff, and that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be discerning greater truths. In other words, things that have a truth about them, but there's something more exceptional about them. There's always something greater. Greetings, Russ. Thanks for joining me again.
Greetings. Thank you. Pleasure to be here, as always.
And pleasure to have you as well. And we're going to get into it with this video here real quick. Now, it's got sound to it, but it's just music, and so what they do is they just run script on it. So I'm just going to go through and read this as we go through it. Of course, we have Mark Twain and copyright law. And you guys, this is one of the things that turned me on to what's actually going on in this stuff. Is in the beginnings of my research, I came across somebody that was trying to tell me it's all about copyright and the name and all this, and the legal name is fraud and all that. And so I started doing some research, and I found out one of the things about Mark Twain was that he walked into Congress to support one of the bills through the House of Representatives as it related to copyrights, because it was a similarly situated place that he was in, where he was his works were not profiting like he wanted them to and like they should have been, because of certain copyright and export laws with the United States, Canada, Britain, and all that. So he went in and supported a copyright bill that was going to extend the copyright terms after an author's death. And it relates directly to the imports and export routines of the various different nations around the world that have treaties with each other. And though they may be different, they're not supposed to be unfavorable, as we saw in the last video. See, this stuff is all supposed to be even and uniform throughout the jurisdictions across the board. People are supposed to be treated equally. Only one thing is impossible for God, to find any sense in any copyright law on the planet. Mark Twain. Artists have fought to protect their work for centuries. Even Leonardo da Vinci suffered seeing his work copied. 2 copies of the Mona Lisa are verified to be by da Vinci, and one in the Louvre and one known as Isleworth Mona Lisa in England. A third by an apprentice under da Vinci, his supervision, is in the Prado Museum in Spain. It's safe to assume that all the other versions are either counterfeits or legal copies, as the Mona Lisa is in the public domain. And there we have 3 examples. Notice they're slightly different in shade. This would be the original one. This is the second one. Notice how it got lighter. And then the third one, by his apprentice, even lighter. Da Vinci's example is hard to document, but there's another case that is well documented. The subject fought unscrupulous publishers who took his works, reproduced them, and sold them for a fraction of what his legitimate copies sold for. That author was Samuel Lanhorne Clemens, better known by his pen name, Mark Twain. Twain outlined his problems with foreign publishers in an 1880 letter his friend Roland Daggett. Bootleg copies of Twain's Adventures of Tom Sawyer flooded the American market less than a month before authorized versions in the U.S. This is because people from Canada, who had that local international agreement with the United States as far as it relates to exports and imports, were allowed to sell from their country to the American people before it even hit the shelves in America. My book sells at $3.50 a copy. Their Canadian counterfeit at 25 and 50 cents. If I could seize all the Canadian counterfeits, I could no more use them to my advantage than the government could use bogus notes to its advantage. The only desirable and useful thing in both cases is the utter suppression of the counterfeit. The government treats its counterfitters as criminals, but mine as erring gentlemen. What I want is that mine shall be treated as criminals too. So we have to get over this thing that, oh, I didn't mean to infringe or this or that. It did. And that's why you have to be careful to maintain good works. Because if they're not yours, then you leave your grubby hands off of them, or make sure that it's patently clear that it is somebody else's work. In other words, you have to give credit to where it comes from. I hope you understand that. You have to give credit to the source. Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress, but I repeat myself. Twain eventually took his fight to Washington, testifying in December 1906 before a congressional committee in favor of House and Senate bills that would extend copyright protection. His view was that his work should be protected long enough. That his work should be protected long enough to provide an income for his daughters. As I say, this limit is quite satisfactory to me. For the author's life and 50 years. It used to be 14 when they first did the copyright law, and then you could get an extension for 14 years, so a total of 28 years. And then they did a 28-year with an extension of 14 years. And then in 1978, they moved it to 70 years. As I say this, in a few weeks or a month or years, I shall be out of it. I shall not be caring what happens if then in 50 years, life of my copyright. But I like the 50 years extension because that benefits my two daughters. So he's saying if he doesn't make it years, his daughters should still be included in that because the copyright will last 50 years, even if he dies tomorrow. The law ultimately passed provided for 28 years and one renewal for 28 more. It wasn't until 1978 that the life plus 50 term Twain espoused became law. So I misquoted that a little bit. So it's actually 70 years now, and I'm sure somewhere we'll find that. That being the case, all of Twain's original works should now be in the public domain since he died in 1910. So 1910 plus 50 years at that time would have been 1960 was when his works entered into the public domain and anybody could have access to them. However, Twain may be having a last laugh from the great beyond. This is one of the neat things I like about Mark Twain. He's very intuitive, and he came up with some great ideas, even in storytelling of Tom Sawyer and whitewashing the fence. In case you didn't comprehend that, maybe read that again and see how intuitive mind could use the psychology of people and what they wanted in life to get them to work for him. That's the story of Tom Sawyer. getting other people to do the work for you. Jack Talcott. Twain left instructions that his autobiography not be published until 100 years after his death. The current law stipulates that copyrights for unpublished works created before January 1st, 1978 expired on December 31st, 2002. However, the Foundation reserves copyrights for Twain's previously unpublished works in all mediums. Twain's papers are preserved at UC Berkeley's Bancroft Library. With the Foundation's permission, the UC Press published a $50,000 limited edition microfilm set of Twain's letters and unpublished papers, as well as the autobiography in 2001. The Foundation has control of the papers and a copyright until 2047 on the microfilm edition and the published edition of the autobiography. Many argue that this move skirts the intent of the law, though it's unlikely to be challenged in court, as Mark Twain Foundation enjoys J.P. Morgan Chase Bank as a trustee. Interesting how they note that, huh?
Sure is.
While the legal maneuver seems a bit unfair, considering the income derived from the sale of these works goes towards preserving them, it seems a fair trade-off. Twain wasn't just any author, and his manuscript should be preserved for everyone to enjoy. The Foundation is there to do that, just as the Mona Lisa is protected by the Louvre for the enjoyment of the public. Of course, the museum is expensive to maintain, and the works on display require very skilled attention to preserve them. To fund this, the Louvre charges admission, as well as enjoying the support of major corporate benefactors. Notice how they know the term benefactor, and they use it appropriately. I don't see much difference between that and selling exclusive copies of Twain's autobiography to fund preserving his literary legacy, and neither do I. And then the credits and copyrights and stuff. So what do you think so far? He was
Something. You were cutting out.
I was cutting out?
Yeah, now I hear you clear.
Okay.
Maybe it was me. Maybe I internet twist or something.
Well, back to it then. Very intuitive man, very forward-looking, and by placing that copyright with the UC Berkeley, I think that was a very good step to take. You know, it helped preserve beyond what the law was able to preserve. And like I said, you know, some people might think it's scrupulous. It's not in the law, so unless you can figure out how to defeat it, it's still standing, and that's 115 years later, folks.
It's still generating value.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, when you learn how to make your yay, there's not much people can do about it. It's just a matter of knowing what that yay is, you know?
I think I was gifted with something that I realized I had to go back and look at it from just a single standpoint of nothing and how we got to where we're at now. And I think that is what's really important in everybody's journey. And I think you even stated it earlier. You can't jump in the middle.
No, you can't. You've got to recognize your own origins.
Right.
That's that thing about knowing yourself. You've got to know your own origins so that then you have something observable to compare to what everybody else's beginnings are. This is that relation. This is where we form those correlations and communications, the correspondences, the messaging, the discussions, the debates, the arguments, the battles, as they call them.
Right.
So let's get that back to the next one. The next one is a writing arguments before the committees on patents and Senate and House of Representatives conjointly on the bills S 6330 and HR 19853. This is the December
You're
7th.
still on Twain.
That better?
There you go.
Okay. This is from Copyright Hearings, December 7th to 11, 1906. And the first statement is the only thing. I'm going to drop this link down there for everybody so they can pull this up and read the whole thing. But the first one is the only thing I'm going to read here. It says, I have read the bill, at least I have read such portions of it as I could understand. And indeed, I think no one but a practiced legislator can read the bill and thoroughly understand it. And I am not a practiced legislator. You see what he's doing there? He's telling them in not so many words that it's just my opinion. What I have to speak is just my opinion, and somebody may know better. So please correct me if you do. I have had no practice at all the unraveling, confused propositions or bills. Tell them straight to their face, there's a lot to this. Not that this is more confused than any other bill. I suppose they're all confused. It is natural that they should be in legal paper of that kind, as I understand it. Nobody can understand a legal paper merely on account of the language that is in it. It is on account of the language that is in it that no one can understand it except an expert. Pretty succinct, pretty plain, pretty clear, and I think a lot of us think the same way today. I mean, that sounds kind of a familiar concept. This is so confusing, I can't understand it. That's why people have a hard time in those courts. They've got a 95% conviction rate, if not better.
Exactly, yeah.
You know? So, anyway, the link is down there for anybody who wants to read the rest of that document. Got a lot of good, interesting information on it. It's not real long. Basically, what's it say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And they've got testifying before Congress by William N. LaForge, soft cover and hardbound. And it's basically like a little training session to get you geared up to go ahead and speak before Congress. Gives you a way to petition your government for redress of grievance, which is exactly what Samuel Clemens did. And I honestly think this is our capacity as people, as American people, that we're supposed to be speaking to Congress and not the legislators and senators and House of Representatives and stuff that are voted into that political campaign. We're not supposed to be speaking to the politicians. We're supposed to be speaking to the leaders, the very leaders at the upper echelons. So that's not necessarily just Congress of the United States, but that if you don't have results with Congress of the United States, you have another venue you can go to at the international level that controls that Congress.
Shouldn't we control the direction of those leaders?
Correct. That's what the director is all about. We're supposed to give directives, not orders. We're not supposed to be taking orders unless they're in the correct capacity. So the next one, Mark Twain debuted iconic style at copyright hearing. He's going to tell us about a little bit about that. And it says Mark Twain, and this is by Wendy A. Maloney. Mark Twain impersonators routinely don a white suit to evoke the persona of a famous author, but Twain himself did not make a habit of wearing white until very late in his life. He unveiled his signature style on December 7th, 1906, at age 71, when he testified about a copyright reform bill before the Congressional Joint Committee on Patents. The hearing took place in Congressional Reading Room of the Library of Congress. What's library? Is that Liber? Is that what we saw earlier? Liber? Liber meaning free, just like Frank. In spite of the keen December wind blowing outside, he burst into view, garbed in a cream-colored suit of light summer flannel, wrote the Washington Post in Twain's fancy suit on December 8th, 1906. The effect was decidedly startling. It fairly made one shiver to look at him. Author William Dean Howells, Twain's close friend, wrote in My Mark Twain, nothing, quote, nothing could have been more dramatic than the gesture with which he flung off his long loose overcoat and stood forth in white from his feet to the crown of his silvery head. It was a magnificent coup, and he dearly loved a coup. I've reached the age where dark clothes have a depressing effect on me, the Post quotes Twain as explaining. I prefer light clothing, colors, like those worn by the ladies at the opera. Whatever his reason for wearing white, it helped to call attention to his testimony. Twain was a strong promoter of copyright reform, both domestic and international. He had lost substantial income in past decades from overseas piracy of his work, especially in Canada and Britain. And I pose that that's what that birth certificate is, being it's an overseas document going through the port of Puerto Rico as an import document is a piracy. In the 1870s, that's just my opinion though, I might be insane. In the 1870s, he started traveling to Canada upon publishing a new work to apply for Canadian copyright, which protected his works throughout the British Empire. He enthusiastically welcomed passage in 1891 of the Chase Act, which extended copyright protection to certain works of foreign authors whose nations protected works of U.S. authors. So there's an interplay of international treaties that you may not be involved in one nation, but because that nation that you are involved with has an extended treaty with that nation that you're not, you now have an involvement. That's a relation. All of these international documents create a relation, and that relation extends all the way down to the local municipality where you're using that mail item to claim a resident. It's a copyright issue, folks. Twain, who was born Samuel Lanhorne Clemens, wanted copyright protection to last in perpetuity. But he testified in 1906 in favor of the bill then before Congress, extending protection to the life of an author plus 50 years. At the time, the term was 28 years with the privilege of renewal for another 14 years. Twain expressed his view with characteristic wit. I like that extension from the present limit of copyright life of 42 years to the author's life and 50 years after, he testified. I think that will satisfy any reasonable author because it will take care of his children. Let the grandchildren take care of themselves. I don't know that I actually agree with that. I kind of like his perpetuity thing because that's what it's actually about. And he was willing to accept the 50 years. And like I said, it's now 70 years. And what it is, remember, it's the extension. Again, it's an extension of credit. If you guys don't see this, please ask questions. I will do my best to help explain it to you. I can't comprehend it for you, but I'm trying to explain it to you here. I like that extension. The copyright and the copyright notice and all that, that's a means of giving credit to the source. So what are you supposed to do in your extension, in perpetuity of life eternal? You're supposed to give all credence to the source. All glory goes to God. That is how we are related. We are all children of God. We should use those words.
Find one's purpose and give it away.
Yep. 1906 bill did not pass, and the term Twain argued for didn't become law until 1978, when the 1976 Copyright Act was implemented. Today, the term for most work is the life of the author plus 70 years. While in Washington in 1906, Twain visited the studio of photographer Francis Benjamin Johnson on 1332nd V Street Northwest. The first official White House photographer, she had taken pictures of many famous people, including Theodore Roosevelt, Susan B. Anthony, and John Philip Sousa. On December 11, 1906, Twain sat for Johnston in his white suit. Later, he posed for many more white-suited photos, including the one included with this column. Almost looks like an angel, all white and ghastly. Almost looks like a ghost, all white and ghastly. But it's like it said, it made an impression on Congress. They listened. And we have an effective copyright law today. So let's take a look at the next one, which is my site, wordwisewarriors.art. Hiring an attorney proves one is incompetent. Protection of fair use. UPU disclaimer and copyright. First thing. From the Journal of Keith Orton Little FBU, issued by Keith. Keith is the flesh and blood image and likeness of Jesus Christ, who is surety for the manual motivator of the living soul with prior spiritual guidance to walk with him solely. Made in good faith with considerable conscience, thought, and observance, and in seeking providence of our Creator's grace. Rigor juris, strictly law. This original literary work of our declaration in opinion is not transmitted through the mails of the United States, but delivered through the post office and or its routing systems, consisting of the World Wide Web et al. What that is there is, that's a declaration of intent to print this off and put my goddamn signature on it and make it testimonial. By putting it in print in electronic form, you are agreeing unknowingly, but it's implied that you are agreeing to print it out as testimonial, that you would testify that this is true. Non-domestic and without the United States, no letters of incorporation recorded or filed or registered. Produced with the following and hereby adopted for ratification and enforcement if needed. UPU, Universal Postal Union, disclaimer and copyright, justifying all sources within their public domain, known as the Union, and only known to be a territory in fact and not in nature. Disclaimer: anyone may use or reproduce any information presented on this website, subject to any specific terms of use that might appear with such information, provided that the use of such information is accompanied by an acknowledgement that the UPU is the source. You have to extend credit to them. Guess what? That's a term of equal consideration, folks. Whether you want to call it credit or not, the data elements you put in, they have to be accompanied by an acknowledgement that you are the source. That accompanying of acknowledgement that you are the source is your signature. The UPU makes every effort to ensure, there's that ensure term again instead of insure, but cannot and does not guarantee, and makes no warranties as to the accuracy, accessibility, integrity, and timeliness of any information presented on this website. The UPU assumes no liability or responsibility for any errors or omissions. So that sounds like the person you want to go to let them know that, hey, I made the mistake. Help me correct it. In the content of this website, and further disclaims any liability of any nature for any loss howsoever caused in connection with using this website, including failure of performance, computer virus, or communication line failure, regardless of cause or for any damages resulting therefrom. The UPU may make changes to these materials at any time without notice. Hyperlinks to other websites are provided as a convenience only and imply neither responsibility nor approval of the information contained in those other websites on the part of the UPU. The UPU makes no warranty, either express or implied, as to the accuracy, availability, reliability, or content of such information, text, graphics, and hyperlinks. The UPU has not tested any software located on other sites and does not make any representations as to the quality, safety, reliability, or suitability of such software. As the case may be, the collection and retention of personal information by the UPU through its website may be subject to terms of a UPU privacy policy. Nothing in or relating to this disclaimer or the UPU website shall be deemed a waiver, explicit or implied, of any of the privileges and immunities of the UPU. So, quid quo pro reciprocity. We don't here at the Keith Orland Little FBU do any of those things either, and therefore it maintains equal consideration and equal benefit of those immunities. So reciprocally, anywhere where you see the term UPU, you can replace it reciprocally with Keith Orland Little FBU. Copyright 2020 Universal Postal Union, all rights reserved. That's the same thing as saying something like kind, without recourse, without prejudice. But it's much more succinct and just says all rights reserved. None of the materials provided on this website may be used, reproduced, or transmitted in whole or in part in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopying, recording, or the use of any information storage and retrieval system, except as provided in this website. See the disclaimer section. So all I got to do is give them notice of such information is accompanied by an acknowledgement that the UPU is the source. Protection of fair use, UPU disclaimer and copyright. It's done. Without permission in writing from the UPU or publisher concerned. Access to databases of the UPU for consultation or documents and or information retrieval is permitted by the UPU, subject to the user's acceptance of UPU's provisions and conditions of copyright, contained within each document, which obliges the user not to duplicate the document or parts thereof for distribution or sale external to the user's organization. So I can distribute it internally to my association and all of its, quote, associates. Just can't do it for sale. And I can't do it externally. And I can't do it externally for sale. But internally, my family members, my friends, my acquaintances, see, I have a right to express myself, and they have a right to know. Without prejudice to the foregoing obligations, such information may be utilized. It is a utility, and you are being utilized, and you are a utility. It is a utilitarian system in receiving the receiving organization as required to further the work of the UPU. These are all peace agreements, folks. To provide guidance for product or service development and implementation, and to serve as supplemental porting documentation associated with a product or service. We support and adopt these notices in ministry and unity of freedom of transit pursuant to the 1611 version of the King James Bible at Psalms chapter 121 in verse 8, wherein it states, "The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore." Then I've got Memorandum of Understanding between the Federal Communications Commission and the Universal Service Administrative Company. You guys know what that is?
I don't.
Memorandum of Understanding between the Federal Communications Commission and the Universal Service Administrative Company. Well, that would be the Global Postal Trust Services and their Universal Service Administrative Company, of which the United States is one such corporate entity. The Federal Communications Commission and the Universal Service Administrative Company, USAC, and the FCC are collectively referred to herein as the parties. Enter into and agree to comply with this Memorandum of Understanding to facilitate the efficient management, oversight, and execution of the Commission's Federal Universal Service Program, also known as the Universal Service Fund. Does that sound like the International Monetary Fund? Oops.
Sure the hell does.
So it's all a matter of protecting a copyright with its own values. All you have to do is relate the values and say, hey, I got my own goddamn copyright. It's reciprocal. It's a matter of coming to peace with their terms and say, hey, goodness gracious, that sounds pretty good. I think I'll apply it to myself.
How the hell could you pass that up?
Exactly. Copyright, 28 years. I think that's kind of lame. I want perpetuity. Well, we can't get perpetuity, but we'll do 70 years. Based on the word of God, it is already perpetuity.
I see it that clearly. I believe that everything should, I shouldn't say, I kind of look at it as anything pulled from resources of the land is there for an all, not just a singular.
Well, yeah, that's
or a section, or a, you know what I mean? A unit. It's an all.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Unit. It's a unit. It's not
United States.
It's United States.
Yeah.
You're a unit. You're running a unit. And it's a military unit at that. So, Harry, so what's the point of this? General knowledge? Or is there a goal in mind where this is needed? It's before you even fucking speak. Before you even fucking speak and let some stupid shit roll off your tongue. Learn how to be artistic. so that it automatically comes with a copyright. In other words, give credence to the source. UPU, even they get their words from in beginning was the word was God. See, the Bible was around a long time before the universal posting. The Bible was around a long time before many of the things we think about in the modern times. And again, it's a matter of teaching you how to speak and act. That's it. And just because you don't know how to do it doesn't mean others don't. Just because you've been indoctrinated into acting like a bitch-ass slave carrying an ID in your pocket doesn't mean everybody does. And I'll have to admit, there ain't too many motherfuckers like me. Because I'm proud to show them my bicycle driver license.
You know what I'd say to one when they roll up on me when it happens? How can I help you today, officer? Do you already have a defendant identified?
Absolutely.
Eagle be fucked right off the bat.
Yep. See, I like showing them my bicycle driver license, folks. Let me show you. It's something I've been carrying around my wallet for almost 7 years now. And they have fun with it. When they ask me for an ID, I have to tell them I don't have one. Well, I got a bicycle driver's license, if that counts. And so I pull it out and I show it to them. And they get a nice little chuckle out of it. But it's not an ID. It gives certain information, just like an ID, but just like any other ID, this has no standing in law. It must be confirmed with this. This is copyright material, you dumbasses. It's artistic. Just because your face is on it isn't what makes it artistic. That's what makes it comedy.
So consent would be the law. Just by going along.
Evidently, you don't know what giving credit to the source is, Harry. Because when you start learning how to give credit to the source, there is no debt. What goes out comes back. It's circulation. And just because you want to confound your ego with all this information that says you know better, keep making it complicated. Keep making it complicated.
Look at it like a magnet.
I don't care what anybody says. That scripture, one of my favorite scriptures is let my yea be yea and my nay be nay. And that's because I learned how to communicate with our Father which art in heaven. And that simply means it's not like I'm sitting in some closet talking to some ghost.
Yeah.
That simply means that I'm able to observe his wife, the world, and all that it has in it. And I'm able to account that and then recount it to someone else in a fashion where we're on agreeable terms. And that means there's no debt. We're on even ground. I'm not above them and they're not above me. We're even ground.
There's that equal station.
It's sad. Again, one more time, I hate seeing our younger generations walking out of school and not picking up another book. Let me show you something else, Harry, in case you haven't been around. In case you haven't been around and understood that I do my research, and I do it very well, we have here the courts and the public schools. So if you really want to know about the courts and the public schools, maybe you ought to school yourself. Maybe you ought to court yourself with some knowledge. How's that? See, those are the simple terms. You need to educate yourself by courting knowledge. Ain't nobody else in this world going to do this stuff for you guys. I just gave you
If
an
the
answer to your simple question. If you don't understand how credit works, it is circulation. Money does not circulate. Money floats around all over the place and very rarely goes back to source. It oftentimes, and I believe in perpetuity always has, been destroyed in paper form because they can't make it last in perpetuity in paper form. It's credit that circulates, not money. Yelling, act like a baby straight from Babylon. Go ahead, brother. Tell you what, feel free to come up on panel anytime, sucker. Feel free to come up on panel anytime, sucker. Because
we
by the time we're done, you're going to be sucking my cock over these words. You understand me, you ignorant little bitch? You ain't going to come here and drive drama. Come on up in panel. You want drama? Come on up in panel. Read your video title. Why would anyone watch? What's the purpose? Getting the point yet? Yeah, why would Samuel Lanhorne Clemens and the copyright issue? I don't care if you don't like the video. I don't care if nobody likes the video. I have a right to express myself to get this information out to people that need it. If you don't think you need it, I don't need you here raising your stupid fucked up questions. Like I'm the one babbling. I'm the one showing you how this stuff works. And you're the one so stuck in your cognitive dissonance and babble yourself, you sit there and babble. Come on up. Prove yourself. Study and show yourself worthy and approved. Otherwise, you sit down there running your mouth. Real Section 8, aren't you? You don't even know what Section 8 means. Getting SSI? You must be friends with Mitch. See, if people think I'm here on SSI, I don't get SSI. I'm going through this stuff with the hospital talking about a customer sales agreement. And they don't want to give credit where credit's due based on their own terms. So they send me a bill and I have to refute the bill with their sales agreement. Then they send me a document with all the fucking things that I've been through, and oh, goodness gracious, it's all zeros. Affecting remedy without having to go into court. What the fuck you suppose? What do you ask me for evidence in court? If it doesn't go to court, it's resolved outside of court. You ignorant bitch ass slaves, keep going to court. Keep going to court. Don't learn about redemption. Don't listen to me.
See, that's why I'm here.
Idiots.
I'm trying to find that clarity within myself to, as far as out on the streets and everything. It's like I told my mother today. I said, you've heard some of the conversations I've had with judges and district DAs. They would have sworn me by now. They would have, you know what I'm saying? So that keeps giving me the motivation and driving forward, because that's showing me that there is value in what we are all doing out here.
Absolutely.
But we have to stand on it. Otherwise, you're a bitch ass slave.
Yeah, and that's something Harry doesn't get. Section 8. This is why nobody subs or watches you. I'm growing in subs. That's fine. But I really don't care. Because again, Harry doesn't get it. It's not about me, dumbass. You think I care about people subbing to me so they can hear this message? Like I said, if they want the message, they'll hear it. And I'm going to be one of the ones saying it. It's the message, not me.
Imagine if I had said that when Paul Revere
Why not raise your credit,
town.
Get a house, discharge it, you know. How? Remember, everything else is wrong? Stop running your mouth and do what you preach? You seem to, again, think that it's an overnight thing. You're such an ignorant bitch-ass slave. You act just like an addict and you want your shit and you want it right fucking now. So you're going to start demanding things, particularly when you sit there and demand somebody else to prove something that they are proving. Again, because you don't see the proof in a fucking court, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You know nothing about me. You know not a fucking thing about me. Well, of course I want people to sub. That's inherently part of it, you dumbass. That doesn't mean that's my only point. My major point, again, it's not about me. It's about the message. That's the only reason I want subs, is so that they get the message. You're an idiot. Get the fuck out of here. Bye.
You know, I tell my offspring when I'm talking to them about this stuff, and I say, you know, I know it seems kind of crazy and, you know, out of the ordinary of what you've been taught ordinarily. But the only thing I'm trying to do is give you a fast track at like Kings Island or somewhere, you know what I mean, with knowledge, and try to get them to think, you know, because everybody's got that competitive mindset that they want to get in front of, you know what I mean? And it's crazy, but you know, there's good things out there. Look at old Youngblood. I'm so proud of that young man. Hey, the future looks brighter, him alone. What is it? Young and Fearless or something? Virgil?
Yep, Virgil, yep. Yeah.
So
Great young man.
That young man.
I mean, I remember when we first met him on the panels, he had a girlfriend, right? And he was listening to us on the panels and stuff, and evidently his girlfriend didn't like it too much. And he stood up for himself and said, well, that's okay, because this is, he said, this, something about this matches me perfectly. This is exactly how I feel. And if you're not going to agree with me having the say-so and the power to make my own choices and determine what kind of woman I want in my life, and that woman has to be, according to me, the same kind of person I'm looking for, you're not it. You know, he had to come to a realization that the very woman that he was with was putting himself in a cuck position. Ladies, quit doing this. You have no right to demand what kind of man will protect you. That's your need in life, is a protection. And by falling back to the protection of a patronymical father known as a nation because your greedy, grubby, fucking gluttonous need for money come out of pure laziness and convenience over generation after generation. And someday, we're all going to pay for the sins of our fathers, even the women. And with that, we are at the end of my stream for tonight. You got anything to say beyond that? My apologies for Harry Nut, guys. We won't have to deal with him anymore.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not worried about them guys. But no, I just enjoy coming up here and obviously learning a little bit, obviously, and it's always a pleasure, man. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. Don't let any of them guys.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think I've gave up on all the other side streets and all the other shit, man. I just try to learn as much as I can learn on a day-to-day basis and pass that on to the younger generation, and yep. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, and with that, folks, we are out of here. Know that I love you. I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's to say, I don't care if you hate me. Even you, Harry. Doesn't matter. So with that, may God bless you and have a good night.